somebody completely took us over.
Oh, snap. I think as creators, we can use the multiple platforms to, diversify your content.
I don't know if the consumer is going to know or care if it's AI or if it's you. I just have to be as fun and creative as them, and I'll be as popular as Mr. Beast.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Creators Uncut. Today, I am joined with David Sidoni from the YouTube channel How to Buy a Home. David, thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. So typically we like to get to know our guests a little bit before we dive into all things YouTube. So if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself, maybe some hobbies, and also what your channel is and kind of what it's about.
Sure. Well, in my 20s, actually starting at 18 years old, I pursued, I really wanted to do performing.
Oh,
So I ended up going to junior college instead of big college. And then me being 20 to 28 years old, I was in movies with Christian Bale and Robert Duvall.
wow.
And then I danced with Michael Jackson. And then I was on a show on Nickelodeon that was really popular. And then I ended up hosting TV shows for the end of my career, including the kids version of Wheel of Fortune.
Oh, wow.
It was all really fun. And then I kind of got to that point in your career where you realize you're going to be auditioning for the rest of your life, because there are people that get scripts sent to them and people who, and then there's everybody else.
Yeah.
So I got into real estate, and my wife was in the business as well. And, we thought that was going to be nice and stable. And about 10 or 12 years into real estate is when I realized that I wanted to, instead of just help people in my little area, reach a national audience. And that's when I got heavy into social media, including YouTube and podcasting.
That's quite the journey. And it sounds like you've worked with a lot of famous people before your real estate career, which is pretty cool. Was there anything that stood out from your performing career that is interesting or unique, I guess?
Yeah, there was a lot of fun stuff. I got really lucky. The first movie I did was called Newsies, and Christian Bale was a 17-year-old English kid who had never been
Oh, wow.
to a Super Bowl party because he was in England. So he came to my crappy little apartment in North Hollywood for his first Super Bowl party.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And then I got to, like I said, I got to work with Michael Jackson. Doing shows on Nickelodeon was really crazy because, the show was designed for 12 and 13-year-olds, and we shot in Hollywood on the same lot as Seinfeld. And we'd see those guys walking around, and here we are shooting the silly kids show. And then people would come and bring their kids because their kids loved the show. And I'm standing there signing autographs because this family is there, and all these kids are surrounding me because they know me from the show on Nickelodeon. And meanwhile, the parents of the kids were Christopher Guest and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Wow.
and all the kids are asking me for autographs, and I'm just looking at them going, this is upside down. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said you switched to real estate.
Yeah.
That seems like pretty like a 180 turn. Did you have like a friend or a connection in real estate? Is that how you got into it? Or
I have no idea. It was no. So at the end of my career, when I kind of realized I wanted to do something else, I was looking into, maybe some production elements of things. But I started doing real estate investing. It's just like, oh, well, I'm almost 30 now. Let's do that. And then my wife and I got pretty serious. And that one it was like, all right, well, I guess we're going to move out of LA. And I was kind of enjoying that part of real estate, but I thought I can do this for a living. And I sort of looked at it for a little bit, and then I got crazy into it. I started in 2006. So as my real estate career is growing, suddenly there's this whole phenomenon of people doing videos.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I used to host TV shows. I know how to talk to a camera. This makes sense.
Yeah. So you mentioned you do podcasts and you have your YouTube channel. Have you seen a benefit of that for your real estate career?
The original idea of starting a channel was, to get people to kind of just have a place to learn stuff.
Mm.
Not necessarily like, "Hey, check me out, look at my house, come buy this house."
Oh, gotcha.
When I got the idea to do a podcast, I thought, "Well, I want this to just be educational for anybody anywhere."
Mm.
So that's like been a journey for the last 6 years, and it's the number one educational podcast for first-time home buyers anywhere.
Wow.
And it's free, and we just teach them how to do it. It was an accident. I thought I was gonna be a YouTube star,
Oh, yeah.
and the YouTube wasn't going anywhere, and I did a podcast as a side note, and at the time, in 2019, 2020, more people were listening to podcasts, when they were being mobile,
Mhm.
walking the dog, doing the dishes. I know there are a lot of people who will just put on a video and have their phone off to the side, but it seemed like people really like to consume just the audio version of the podcast.
Mhm.
So it's been a real adventure for us to add YouTube as a supplement to the podcast.
Yeah.
We tried and put up the full 45-minute podcast and they tanked.
Oh, interesting.
So now we're trying to do educational format, but maybe 4 to 8 minutes.
So is that completely, like, scripted, completely different from the podcast, or do you take, like, segments from your podcast and put them on YouTube?
At this point right now, with 340 podcasts, we've pretty much covered the basis of how you buy your first home.
Mhm.
A lot of the podcast right now is interviews, and a lot of it is current event stuff.
Oh, gotcha.
So the YouTube tends to be, we've got 4 different buckets. There's how to pick your realtor, there's housing 101,
Mhm.
which is kind of current event stuff, and then there's the straight education stuff, and then we'll have, evergreen moments that would be kind of more like the podcast, but we just did one on the tariff situation and how that's affecting housing.
Oh, gotcha.
It's a condensed version of what we do on the podcast, and it's a much more direct, you probably are wondering about this. So here's what it is affecting, here's what it's not affecting, and here's what you really need to know in the first place.
Gotcha. That sounds pretty good for YouTube. Finding the right people for that is probably a little bit more difficult because it's really niche, but, like you mentioned, like, it covers the bases with those 4 buckets, and so, I think that is really helpful for people out there, so that's awesome. When I first came across your channel, I watched your channel trailer, as I'm sure a lot of people do when they first go to a channel, is check out the trailer, and it was really, well edited, first of all, and second of all, you told a story about how you had to, like, reclaim your channel because it was hacked or something like that. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that story.
Somebody completely took us over.
Oh, snap.
We spent a year developing the concepts and ideas and studying and watching other creators, because there's an art to YouTube. If you really want to get your message out there, you have to think about a lot of different things, and we knew, I know if you put a camera in front of me, and my creative director is the guy who did that editing, and did all the shooting for that trailer video.
Mhm.
He and I'll come in here and we'll go nuts, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a good YouTube video.
Right.
So after we did all our year of studying, we're just getting ready to go up, and all of a sudden one day we go online and it's all about Elon Musk,
Oh.
and that was the hack. They go in, they and when we immediately started Googling and checking it out, apparently this is a hack. People take over your YouTube channel, somehow get your information from your Google login or whatever. They put up a bunch of videos about SpaceX and Tesla
Oh.
and Elon Musk, and somewhere buried at the end of some of the videos is some kind of call to action that's spam.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
So it's
it
been
was,
done, multiple times to other people?
yeah, when we're starting to put it into Google, it finished the sentence for us. And I was
Oh,
like, "Oh,
wow.
damn."
That's crazy.
Yeah. Uh, so it was, something that they just did over and over again, and they obviously got results for it because they kept doing it. And it was an arduous, scary few days.
So did you have to go through like YouTube customer support, or did you have to create a whole new channel?
No, we held our breath and went through customer support.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and while we were waiting for emails back, we just dug in and did all the research everywhere, and everybody said it should get done because basically we saw articles that said that hack we know, and they know what it is. So they're probably going to be able to grab everything for you. And it's not about destroying all of your stuff. It's was more about just replacing it and trying to get other people to click on whatever they're trying to get people to click on. It wasn't, because there are crazy malicious hacks
Mhm.
that go in and destroy all your stuff just because.
Right, yeah.
This wasn't. These people were trying to make money off of the people who might find my channel.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
So
it was hard.
I bet it would be hard. I'm curious, uh, did you see after the hacking incident, did you see a decline in, like, your views after that because your subscribers are like, "What is going on?" Or did anyone comment about it?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, we got people talking to us, for sure, and that's kind of the reason why we made the trailer
Mm,
as sort of a reintroduction.
gotcha.
But it is one of those things that my YouTube channel is in its infancy, and
Mhm,
we have multiple other platforms where people interact with me, because you can interact with me or the company as well.
mhm.
So, I think if I was just a YouTuber, there would have been a lot more people freaking out.
Yeah.
Like, when they couldn't find it there, they just went to my website and then asked a question there on a different link.
Mhm.
I'm trying to get to the point where I am having a whole conversation with people in the comments, and the goal of the company is that I basically do kinda like a radio call-in show, but just YouTube Lives.
Oh, gotcha.
If you wanna know everything about buying your first home, you can go to the How to Buy a Home podcast,
Mhm.
and this dude's on YouTube Live 3 or 4 times a week. Get on, get your question asked, and see what you can do. So, in the meantime, I think people had other options to come and find us, and now we're having a lot of fun trying to grow it the new way. We gotta shoot a new trailer because the hack was a while ago, but it's so funny, I just like leaving it up there.
Yeah, yeah. How long ago was the hack?
It's like a year ago now.
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha.
or no, it was in the summer, I think. So not quite a
Oh,
year.
okay. A little
Yeah,
bit less than a year, gotcha.
yeah.
So I think it's important to point out here, and I love that you mentioned that you have other platforms. I may be a little bit biased. I think YouTube is the best platform, but I think as creators, we can use the multiple platforms to, diversify your content and, really create that community. And luckily for you, you had those other sources where people could still talk to you in that instance that you were hacked. So I think that's important to point out for those who you know, are YouTubers that are consistently on YouTube or those who are starting YouTube, you might want to look at other platforms to, expand your community and audience. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
It's been very interesting for in my journey. I mean, I'm an older dude, I started my podcast when I was 49 years old because I had the life experience and the education to actually be somebody that other people might wanna listen to, whether it be on a social media scroll, a podcast, or a YouTube channel.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm like, "Hey, I've been doing this a long time. Here's all the secrets."
Yeah.
One thing that was really interesting for me at the beginning was to realize here in Southern California, so I go to VidCon all the time,
Mhm.
and because it's right up the street. I see all the creators and their communities. My little corner of YouTube is a little different. My community isn't a community that comes and stays.
Oh,
So we're different in a couple ways. You know what I mean? People are in for 6 months, 8 months, learn what they need to learn.
and then they buy their home and then they're out.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And
Interesting.
and we're in the process of creating a community for the people after you buy your home, but it's also not something that, even if I make the community where people can talk about what to do after you buy your home, figuring out remodeling the home or what to do about when you want to upgrade stuff. that's still something you might go to once a month,
Mhm.
but it's not something you're gonna go to 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
It became very clear for me that I'm never gonna be like all those people I see at VidCon. My YouTube channel is not going to create a community, but my YouTube channel is going to be the place that an entire generation, when they're ready to buy homes, they'll have grown up on YouTube, and when they have a question, they ask YouTube
Mhm.
by building something that can be there for them, and that's what it's all about. It's like you were saying to, YouTube people think about doing stuff at other places. I just put it everywhere, and I found out that most of the people were starting on a podcast.
Mhm.
And now I know that YouTube's gonna be that second place where I can really make sure that if anyone wants to find this information, they can get it.
Yeah, yeah. This has been mentioned on the podcast before, but Google's the number 1 search engine and YouTube's number 2. So
Yep.
it's a great place to put informational resources out there. So that's
Which is
awesome.
really funny because then, we go into all the studying of what we're gonna do because, I'm going to the VidCons and I'm talking to my creative guy and all the workshops and everything, and they're all like, "Hey, by the way, you don't wanna be search, you wanna be suggested." And I'm like, it's the whole point of what I was doing this. so
Yeah.
so now we've got to refocus our entire, I do a 30-minute podcast on, what's going on in the inventory crisis and housing and how it affects first-time homebuyers right now. Then we spend a week figuring out how do I get a thumbnail that'll make people click on it? And who cares what I say for 3 minutes? Let's just get people to click.
Yeah. Speaking of thumbnails, how do you decide what to put in your thumbnail? Because, the package, like you mentioned, people are saying you want to be suggested, and the package of a YouTube video is very, very important. So, how do you decide how to make your videos? And is your creative person also the one that makes the thumbnails?
Yeah, I told JT he's my boy, and I was like, and we both from the beginning said, so we're just going to hire a graphic designer, right? We're not going to do
Hmm.
this. And we said, yeah. So our first couple thumbnails were done through Fiverr.
Oh.
We found somebody who does YouTube thumbnails. Now, we
Hmm.
had also listened to all the gurus, taken a bunch of seminars and courses, and it's like trying to figure out how to get your Instagram reel to explode. Whatever this week will be different next month.
Hmm.
Faces, no faces. Lots of text, no text. Super bright colors, dulled image. I mean, it's changed a million times since I've been doing it. We just this week have noticed that our last couple months of thumbnails, the ones we had one on how to pick a real estate agent. So the concept was, so we had people and then their faces were blurred out. And then there was one other one that had a contract and a stopwatch with no faces. Those are
Hmm.
our lowest 2 performers.
Oh, wow.
So
Interesting.
we're now doing faces. So to answer the question that a lot of people who are really in the game are wondering, yep, we're doing them AI now.
Oh, interesting. I don't know if I've met anyone or any YouTube creators that are using AI for thumbnails. So, do you have a specific AI that you use? Or do you kind of use a combination of AI tools or?
This is a whole nother podcast. For what I'm going to do in in my company is have an AI FAQ version of myself
Uh-huh.
in multiple different levels.
Okay.
Like, I'm not just talking like a little chat bot. I'm talking like a video of me that answers questions in real time live, but it's going to be a robot, not me,
Oh, wow.
but it's going to look like me. So,
Yeah.
so I'm so deep in AI that I created a social media channel for myself. Like I just have an extra Instagram, and all I did, I say train the algorithm to tell me what's going on with AI. And this dude's thing came up, and I was like, okay. And I paid him $80, and I went through the course, took about 200 pictures of me, and now you can. My JT goes into that, and you have to take the pictures the right way and the right lighting
Mhm.
and all that stuff. And now you can just tell it what you want, and it's me, just as a
Oh,
gladiator.
in the thumbnails.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I have 6 fingers and it's, it's
Yeah, it's
AI
not
can't do
perfect.
hands. But, he did one with me as a Jedi. It's so awesome.
That's
And
cool.
yeah, uh, but yeah, the one today, um, or next the most recent one that he sent, we would have normally come in here in my studio, we would have took the camera and I would have, done one of these. And instead, he just punched it in and there's my face in a black t-shirt doing this, pointing it up at the text.
Gotcha. So you take like a bunch of pictures, or you took a course that told you how to do this, but you took a bunch of pictures basically, and then everything else is AI generated. Like the background is AI generated.
Yeah,
Your body is. Did you take pictures of just your face, or did you take pictures of like your whole body?
it's about 80% face, but
Okay.
you do some medium shots and some long shots. And
Okay.
it gets better and better every time you use it and every time you do it. And
Hmm.
like we have a thing on the calendar, we're going to take more pictures again. You know, sometimes they're okay. Sometimes they don't really look like me. Sometimes they look like me, but younger and skinnier. So I love that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I put up my logo on when we changed our branding, and one of the guys I work with here in Southern California called me and went, "That's 10-year-old you." And I said, "Shut up! It's the new logo."
That's funny.
Thumbnail AI thumbnail is going to be. It already is, but it's really going to be something that is going to be very difficult to. I don't know if the consumer is going to know or care if it's AI or if it's you, because most of the time, when you're putting your face onto a graphic, it already creates kind of an illusion of, I mean, you're really not standing there pointing at a
Hmm.
waterfall, you know,
Hmm.
and no thumbnail is a natural photo, taken of you outside or with a prop. It's always it's graphic design.
Right.
So what does it matter if the human image, as long as it looks human, and it's given us a world of opportunities, and especially, when we start getting into A/B testing, if a couple days in it's not performing, JT goes in and in 5 minutes just changes the background, the word, and the text. And then if you want to reverse me, if we decide to take the text out and take the pointing out, that's just, we don't have to shoot another picture. That's just clickety clackety click.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question is, so say it spits out something that you don't like, do you edit it by typing in like a chat box like, "Hey, I want you to change this background to this," or does it spit out like a Photoshop file that you can edit with layers and stuff?
There is a Photoshop option to it,
Oh, okay.
but the selling point to it is that, like, I saw a guy, I went to a conference for social media marketing people a couple weeks
Mhm.
ago, and there was a guy up there, and he was in his 40s, and he said, "From the time I was 12 years old, I was becoming a Photoshop expert, and I loved it." And he goes, I don't use it at all anymore. I just type into Chat GPT.
That's crazy.
He says sometimes he uses Photoshop terms. If he takes two real images, if he uploads two real images, he might speak to it in Photoshop. But yeah, it's all typing.
Gotcha.
Last night I was having a weird text conversation with my friend, and I just clicked over to Chat GPT and I explained a situation about us in the 1990s at a 24-hour diner in North Hollywood, where there was a guy who thought he had picked up four beautiful women, and they weren't women, and we knew it. And I asked the ChatGPT to recreate this for me. I uploaded a picture of me and uploaded a picture of my friend, and then they made a picture.
That's crazy.
I sent it to my friend last night via text, and he was out and woke up this morning and went, "What were you on last night?" So the more that you play with the stuff, the better it is, and you can have it be trained for your YouTube face. And then I don't want to take any graphic artists' jobs away, but a lot of the stuff that we would have asked them to create as the background for it can be created right now.
Yeah, it's crazy how much AI has improved. I don't know if you've seen the Will Smith spaghetti video, when AI I guess that's a video, but AI
Yeah.
video generation. It came out when like AI video generation was brand new, and it was one of those videos that was scary because it like did not look real at all.
Yeah.
But just recently, I can't remember if it was the end of last year or the beginning of this year, but they recreated that video with how much AI has improved, and it almost looks real. And that's just been the span of like 1 or 2 years. And so, right now we may be able to tell little things, like it can't get hands right.
Yeah.
So we may be able to tell little things that are AI, but in a year or two, like who knows, like if we'll be able to tell a difference. And like you mentioned, it may not even matter to the viewer, especially with thumbnails. Like the point of the thumbnail is for the person to click on the video. And so if it does that as a thumbnail, then it's doing its job.
Well, it's really interesting because in the short form video world, in the business side of things, what I'm doing now, this is spilling a little bit over into creators, but high production value is decreasing views now. Real, authentic, regular talking
Mhm,
if you're a short form creator is much more highly valued. And as AI begins to be able to, like, all the stuff that, I mean, I've got videos on my channel, you're like, whoa, overproduced, dude. You know,
mhm,
well, that stuff, it's going to be interesting because everyone's like, oh, AI means no one's going to make a real video. Well, if everything out there all looks the same and it's all polished and it's all gorgeous, what are the viewers going to gravitate to that feels real?
mhm.
A dude in a studio talking. And then you just have to figure out how to edit it, or how to have your content be intriguing enough, because pretty soon any 12-year-old with a computer will be able to create this over the top special effects event.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I think I want to transition gears a little bit, less, I guess, from the creative side and maybe more on the analytics or numbers side of your YouTube channel. So, obviously YouTube has analytics, like it tells you like demographics and views and all that good stuff. And then there's also like comments on YouTube videos. So I'm wondering, how do you decide, when to follow the data that YouTube is giving you or when to follow your audience and what they're wanting? Because, viewers want specific things. They want to watch certain things, but sometimes that's not what the data says. So, how do you find that balance with your YouTube channel?
Well, one of the things we decided to do from the very beginning was to get data from someplace above and beyond just the YouTube analytics, because everybody can get that. And so we looked into
Mhm.
TubeBuddy and vidIQ, and we're using vidIQ,
Okay.
and we're using it to get the data, not to be married to whatever they say.
Gotcha. That
You
makes
know,
sense.
occasionally it will comment, because in my specific world, the real estate market changes, and I can't know what the internet knows, and the internet knows, hey, for the last week all of these things have been trending
Mhm.
and people are talking about it. I could maybe find that on like, there's a site called Answer the Public, and there's a whole bunch of other data driven sites,
Mhm.
but the YouTube ones like vidIQ, that really tells you, in the YouTube world, of your teeny tiny niche of people that you've created with us, this is what they're looking at this week. That might change a video that we make. Um, but to just kind of put out something in the current events. And that's where I have, I mean, gossip channels have that, movie channels have that, where, you just talk
Mhm.
about whatever's happening. But then beyond that, yeah, if people start asking me in the comments, I'm definitely going to do that. Someone saying, can we get more on this? Or, um, so it's a combination, and I like to look at the data and the analytics, and most of the time it tells me pretty much what I knew. But what we do is when it's something we hadn't thought about,
Mhm.
instead of going, well, that's dumb, we go, wait a minute. And then we research it and figure out if it's really something we should do.
No, that totally makes sense. That I really like what you said. You get the data, but you're not married to it.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to point out for any beginner YouTubers. You do want to pay attention, but you don't want to solely base it on that. So great advice. And speaking of advice, every YouTuber goes through their own specific journey. They experience different things and they learn a lot as they go throughout this. From your experience, was there any, I guess, mistakes or things that you learned as you've gone throughout your YouTube journey that you think might be helpful to our audience?
It's very contradictory.
Okay.
Publish, not perfect. That's probably the biggest one. But on the other side of that, don't just publish and think that that's it. Publish, not perfect means don't spend weeks editing and cutting and scripting. Just if you get something to a good enough level and then get it out there, but then analyze the heck out of it.
Mm,
What did the audience respond to? Why did they respond? What did they not respond to? And as much as when you're new, you don't have a lot of comments to really help guide you, like we were talking about in your last question.
right.
So when you're new, you have to look at audience responses. And in a really weird way, you need to go take your niche and see what are the top videos in your audience for the last month. Because if you only have 4 or 5 videos, or if you only have, 50 videos that don't have a ton of views, that's one place to get market data. The other places to get market data is to go look at the market. Where are they? Don't go and copy somebody else's video, but take that topic and put your spin on it. So that's my big advice. And don't give up.
Yeah.
Just the algorithm changes consistently, and you just gotta, if what you're putting out there is something different from everybody else, someone will find it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is great advice. So, did you experience any of those things yourself doing your YouTube channel? Maybe perfecting things a little bit too much or, getting discouraged. Have you experienced those things?
Still,
Oh, yeah.
we still over perfect.
Yeah.
For me in particular, there's a world of information that I want to get to people. I don't want to overwhelm them, but it's not like I'm struggling for what to do.
Hmm.
We're really working on, we've got the next 100 videos already done in my head, and half of them rough drafted, and all of them have a 45-minute podcast speech,
Yeah.
script. So it's done. I just have to turn it into YouTube. So, yeah, I struggle with the perfection side of things. I struggle with, really realizing that if I really want to get big, either I'm going to have to get way better at the analytics, or I'm going to have that person be part of my company,
Yeah.
to have a professional person look at my analytics every single day, because comments will tell you one thing, but the retention graph tells you a heck of a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, if our listeners remember our last episode, our guest actually mentioned um, this same kind of thing about perfection. He talked about how you go like 80% good and then don't worry about perfecting the last 20% because the time it takes to do that last 20% can be like twice as long as that first 80%. So I think everyone, struggles a little bit with over perfecting on YouTube. I know I do. So it's a pretty common thing.
Yeah.
So, David, I've got one more final question for you. And this is one that we ask all of our guests. So, those of you listening, if you've listened to the previous episodes, you know what this question is, but it's all about YouTube myth busting. And you may have, maybe talked about some of these things before with some of your advice. But like I've mentioned before, every YouTuber goes through different experiences. And I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about YouTube that people have. Maybe they're true, maybe they're false. But from your experience, David, doing your YouTube channel, is there anything about YouTube that you think is a myth that you think needs to be busted?
That's a great question. Boy, it's hard because if you asked me about buying your first home, I'd have 7,000 of them. But
Yeah.
I'm always very careful not to speak so adamantly about things that I'm not 100% sure of.
Hmm.
And in a weird way, I'm not sure because I feel like YouTube might change and evolve at any time.
Hmm.
It's weird, but I think that the myth that if you just put up a great video and you don't think about your thumbnail and title, it's going to blow up. That's a huge myth.
Yeah.
Um, the myth that your content is going to break through everything and that you don't have to pay attention to publish times, to some kind of call to action to the people to get to subscribe or comment, that you don't have to pay attention to anything else to help it grow, and you just think I'm going to make a great video. That's a myth that needs to be busted because there are thousands of people in your small little space. There are millions of people out there all wanting to do this. So it's a weird thing. I think the myth that everyone on YouTube is super creative and that I just have to be as fun and creative as them and I'll be as popular as Mr. Beast. Oh, you mean the guy who spends $100,000 researching every single thumbnail? The
Yeah.
guy who has a team of data people, A and B testing everything? The guy who's asking YouTube, can we A/B test thumbnails? And so just being creative is only half the game. One of the most incredible things about YouTube is that suddenly, like, people who used to want to get their television show shot couldn't do it.
Hmm.
And now they can do it and put it up on YouTube, and maybe someone sees it and makes it out of it. That's great. And those people are super creative at what they do, but someone also has to understand the business side of, if you're trying to grow just as a content creator, you can't just be all about the creative. You have to dig into it. And it's not as bad as it seems, because a lot of times if you're a YouTube watcher, you kind of figure it out in your own personal scrolling. Know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. That is great advice. There's more to it than just coming up with the ideas. There's actually all the behind the scenes stuff that you don't even see when you're watching those videos. So uh, I agree. That's great advice. So, David, thanks for being a guest on the show. I really appreciate it.
Glad that someone's out there giving this information to people, because it's a fun place to play.
Yeah. So your YouTube channel is How to Buy a Home. And you mentioned you have other platforms that you have people that talk to you. If our audience wants to follow you, where should they go besides your YouTube channel?
Well, the YouTube channel is, really excited about getting that growing. But everything else is at howtobuyahome.com.
Okay.
And there's, the Instagram and the TikTok, and because I'll get some people, it's so funny though, people reach out to me and all they know of me is my YouTube channel. And then other people they just think I'm a TikToker, and they don't
Yeah.
even know I have a website. And I'm like, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks again. And make sure to go check out David on his YouTube channel and all of his other platforms. And thanks for checking out this episode and listening. Make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're interested in getting help with content creation, make sure to check us out at creatorluxe.com. And we'll see you in the next episode.